Welcome back to episode 32 of the Thinking Ape podcast. So today I have Grahame White with me. So Grahame White has been involved in Buddhist meditation practice for over 40 years. He began his study in England in 1969 before being ordained as a Buddhist monk for 1 year in BodhGaya, India in 1971. He took a primary role in the establishment of Vipassana meditation in the tradition of Mahasi Sayadaw in Australia and co-founded the Blue Mountains Insight Meditation Center outside Sydney. Grahame leads introductory and day-long courses in Illawarra and Sydney areas and regularly teaches longer intensive retreats in Honolulu, Hawaii, where he is a guiding teacher with the meditation group Vipassana. Thank you for the time, Grahame, and appreciate it. So the first thing I guess I'd want to delve into is what made you get into meditation?
Oh, right. Well, actually, what made me get into meditation is I left Australia in 1966 as a surfer, and I left Australia because of Vietnam. And so at the early call-ups in Vietnam, we could still leave. We still had passports, so we could go. So we jumped on a ship and went to South Africa to travel the world and to really escape Vietnam, being called up for Vietnam.
What made you pick South Africa?
Because I'm a surfer, right?
Fair.
Yeah. And all my life I live in a small surfing town called Ostermeer down south of Sydney. And from an early age we were surfing. So we said, let's go to South Africa, because we'd seen the movie Endless Summer, and which is a very famous classical surf movie. And they had all this footage on South Africa. And so we decided, my friends and I decided, and a whole other array of people from Manly, et cetera, who were doing the same thing, getting away from being called up, if you like. And we all went to South Africa and stayed there for a period of time, over a year actually, working and surfing and et cetera. And then we traveled through, my friends and I traveled through South Africa to Rhodesia, which was then called Rhodesia, and Kenya, and went across to India. And that was the first time we'd been to India, and Sri Lanka. We were going to Sri Lanka to go surfing, right? Because that was a spot that we'd heard about that was very good for surfing. So to cut a long story short, we had our boards with us. And so we traveled with our surfboards, which was, you can imagine, quite difficult in those days. They were, like big, heavy 9/6 boards. The shortboard revolution hadn't happened at that point. But in Sri Lanka, which is a Buddhist country, we were surfing in this very beautiful little spot in like a horseshoe bay style beach. And there was a reef break there, and we were surfing in this beach break and on this reef break. And after I'd finished surfing that afternoon, I walked along the beach back to where we were staying in this little hut. And on the point of this horseshoe-shaped beach, there was a monastery. But I was really unaware of anything to do with Buddhism or temples, or, even though we were in Sri Lanka, we were there mainly to go surfing. We didn't have any understanding of Buddhism. And even in my earlier days, I didn't know anything about Buddhism at all. But I saw this monk in the distance. And as I got closer, he was walking very slowly back and forth. And I was watching him, and he was doing walking meditation, but I didn't know what he was doing at that time. And so I watched him, and as I was walking along, my mind started to become very quiet and very tranquil and very concentrated. And I said, this is quite nice. And I got closer, and he was doing slow walking meditation, which in the Mahasi tradition, I found out later was part of the practice of Vipassana. It was one of the exercises that one did to develop mindfulness. So I got to the wall of the temple and watched him for a while, and the mind just kept getting more tranquil and more quiet. And I said, "Oh, this is nice," you know. But then my friends came along, and I let it go. I didn't take any more notice. And we travelled up through India and surfing in Madras and places like that. I think we were the first people to ever surf in India. Went to Nepal and overland to England, to London. And I was working in this, actually it was quite interesting because as much as what I'm doing now with my own business, I worked in a business which was a giftware business, and I was a driver. I used to drive all around England delivering Tupperware to all these shops. But in the meantime, I'd been to Sri Lanka. Not to Sri Lanka, what am I talking about? I'd been to, we'd been surfing in Biarritz in France. One afternoon, I was coming back from the surf and along the boulevard of Biarritz, and there was a series of rubbish bins. And I just happened to look into this rubbish bin, and there was a book. And I picked the book out of the rubbish book, and it was a book by Hermann Hesse called Siddhartha, which is in the 70s, 60s. In the 60s, Hermann Hesse was one of the gurus of the alternate society, and his book Siddhartha was very famous, and everyone read it. But I didn't know about that at the time. I just saw this book. Now, I didn't read it at the time because we were with a lot of other people. But when I got back to London from that trip, I started to read it. And on the second page of the book, there was a stanza that said, if you breathe in Om and breathe out Om, the mind will become blissful. And one night, staying with a bunch of Australians in London, and they all went out. And I sat down a little self-consciously, crossed my legs and breathed in Om and breathed out Om. And the mind just became really bright, you know, and nice. And then the next day I went to work, and my friend at work, I told him what my experience had been. And he said, well, you know, I go to a Thai temple in London. I said, I couldn't imagine in my mind a Thai temple in London because, you know, I was thinking golden spheres and, you know, this beautiful Thai temple. He said, oh, no, it's not like that. And it was a house just on the outskirts of London. It was a spiritualist house. The Thai government had bought this place, and they'd set up a Thai monastery there, a Thai temple, a beautiful old English country house. And so I went with my friend, and the monk who was teaching at the time there, he taught Vipassana meditation, which I had no idea what that was, none whatsoever. And so I became very regular. I liked it very much, what he was saying. It sort of clicked with me. And so I very regularly, every Wednesday night, without fail, I'd go to the meditation class. And he would give me instructions. I'd come back to my little flat in London with this bunch of raging Australians, lock myself in my room, and I'd do the practice. And the practice was just eye-opening for me. And that's how I got into it. You know.
What was the practice? And if you could touch on what the differences are, I guess, with the Vipassana, however you pronounce it, compared to the other forms of meditation.
Vipassana.
Vipassana, that's it.
Yeah. Well, there's two ways of pronouncing it. If you pronounce it in the Sanskrit, it's Vipassana.
Okay.
But the Pali, which is what Theravadan Buddhism is mostly concerned with the Pali language,
Mhm.
language, it's Vipassana,
Okay.
insight. And so what the Buddha taught at the time, all this was new to me. You must remember, this is all just totally new. But
Yeah.
I dived into it with great vigor
Hmm.
and started to experience the benefits of Vipassana practice. And so wanted to do it more. But after a while, I learned more about the teachings of the Buddha and how it all unfolded over time. But with the Buddhist teachings, there's two types of practice, of course. There's concentration practice, which they call samatha practice. Now, and there's Vipassana practice, right, which is opening up to the mind and body processes. Where now concentration practice, of course, is in all the different traditions, religious traditions. You know, it's in the Hindu tradition, the Christian tradition, the Muslim tradition. That was the type of practice that was known at the time and still is today, concentration practice. And at the time of the Buddha practiced concentration meditation, which is paying attention to one particular object, such as the breath. There's actually 40 different subjects that can be used to develop concentration. And you ignore everything else that comes through the sense doors, any other impressions or impacts that come through the sense doors. When the mind becomes very absorbed in the object of meditation, in concentration meditation, then the mind can go from being a jumble of thoughts and emotions to experience these levels of absorption practice, of absorptions, which is called samadhi. And different levels of samadhi arise in the mind, and the mind becomes very tranquil, very blissful, very beautiful. You're not aware of other things around you. And the mind's completely locked into that particular subject of meditation that you're concentrating on. You understand?
Yeah. How long does it take to get to that process? Like, for example, there's periods where I try and meditate in the mornings or whatnot. And I'm sure I've spoken to my friend about it a lot because he's really into it as well. And he's like, I'm sure we're all doing it wrong in the sense of we're just closing our eyes, focusing on our breath. But I feel like there's layers and levels to it. And also, yeah, back to my first point, how long does it take to achieve that kind of blissfulness?
It takes some time. I think the misconception of it is that it comes easily, but it doesn't come easily. And these yogis in those different traditions I spoke about, the ones that apply themselves fully, it may take months or years for this to happen. So if you're expecting that to do half an hour meditation every day, it's going to be a long road for it to happen. Because, for concentration meditation, especially, you need certain conditions.
What are those conditions?
Well, those conditions are you need a suitable abode, with no distractions, no noise. So you'll often hear about the stories of for example, the Tibetan yogis that lock themselves in a cave for 3 years, 3 months, 3 days, etc. And you need good food. But basically the main thing is you need no distractions around you.
And is that a constant thing or like for an hour a day or?
No, it's not. It'll work, but it'll take a long time.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's too difficult. So if you're practicing concentration meditation, you really need to go somewhere where you apply yourself fully.
And when did you first experience that?
Oh, when I first started to practice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And
different conditions arose, and where for each and every one of us, different conditions can spark things off. And fortunately for me, it was quite quickly. But that's concentration meditation. Now, Vipassana meditation. So think of concentration meditation as closing down the sense doors.
Yeah, closing down the sense doors, all right.
Whereas Vipassana meditation is opening and becoming aware of the impressions that touch the sense doors. Hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. The way of Vipassana meditation is to open up to what it is we're experiencing. But what you need to have a certain amount of concentration where the mind can stay with how did you say this? Stay with an object that's coming into consciousness for a moment. So there's two types of concentration. The one that's used in Vipassana meditation is called Khanika Samadhi, which is moment-to-moment concentration. So, for example, you hear a sound, you note it, or you know it. You smell a smell, you know it. If it comes into consciousness, it becomes obvious. And then you move like a butterfly, not like a butterfly, like a bee going to different flowers and sucks, sits on the nectar and gets the nectar, then moves to the next one, moves to the next one.
And how do you stop? Because I've tried that, for example, and the mind will always get sidetracked in the sense of you'll do it like, let's say 3 in a row, note, and then you'll start thinking about something else. It's really tiring to try and keep that focus. Is that just because it's new?
It is. It's just because it's new. And it's also thinking that thought's a problem instead of noting the thoughts.
Yeah, okay.
So you need to know the thoughts, the thought, you don't need to know what the thoughts are. You need to know the process of thinking, that it's arising and passing away. A thought just lasts for a moment, right? And there's a myriad number of thoughts, but we don't see it clearly. It's like going to the cinema and we see just one thing happening, but in actual fact, there's a lot of frames in one thing, like one scene, if you like. And so that's what happens in meditation. So in Vipassana practice, in concentration practice, of course, thought is a no-no. Get rid of it. And you do that by concentrating really hard. It takes a lot of willpower. But with Vipassana, thought's not the problem. It's just thinking. And if you are mindful of that thought process, over a period of time, the thinking you'll be able to catch it really quickly, like catching a tennis ball.
Yeah.
And it won't last very long, only lasts for a moment, and eventually will die out altogether.
And what made you attracted to the Vipassana over the first one you mentioned? Was it just because that was
I think my first experience with the breathing in Om and breathing out Om, right, which is a concentration practice because it's a mantra practice, right?
Makes sense, yeah.
It's one of the 40 different subjects that one can use, that my mind became so tranquil that then I didn't know about Vipassana at the time until I went to this Thai temple. And he taught me how to practice Vipassana.
Yeah, okay.
And that was a different experience altogether, although it did have an element of what they call in Pali Sukha, of the happiness that arises in the mind through meditation practice. And gradually over a period of time. But once again, with Vipassana, I think these days it's not given its due profundity, that it takes time and it takes different conditions as well. So everyone's too impatient and they think, I think too much. Well, it's okay to think too much as long as you're aware of it, not identified with the thought. As soon as you start identifying, then you'll roll in it and start making a story, and the thinking patterns will increase instead of just noting it. So in Vipassana, we just note what it is without judgment or identification. And gradually over a period of time, thinking will just stop.
Yeah, okay.
Or you'll be able to catch it really quickly before it rolls into a thought, which creates a mental state, which could be not useful or useful, whichever way it goes. You understand? So it's all in the mindfulness training. Mindfulness means to just be with the present moment experience and see the present moment experience as behavior arising, passing away.
One thing that I've always had a question with that, because I understand, I feel like the most happiness will be is when we're just in the moment, right? But in terms of everyday life, you know, people have bills, people have things in the future that they need to plan for a week, a month, years ahead, things like that.
Sure.
So how do you kind of balance that being in the moment, being in the present, when you still need to take yourself out of that in order to live a functioning life, I guess?
Right. Well, I mean, I guess I'm a good example of that because I run, you know, other than all my Dharma work, right? I run a very busy business.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you balance those two things, and how often are you
Well,
actually
you learn.
practicing?
Oh, I practice every day, twice a day.
How long are those sessions?
45 minutes each day.
Yeah. Morning and night, I'm guessing?
Yeah, morning and night. Sometimes at night I might be a little tired, and but I always try to do at least half an hour. And then when I get it, because I'm lucky that I teach retreats. So nowadays I get a lot of practice in when I'm teaching retreats. But the thing is that people forget is that any situation is workable. So if you're running a business or whatever you happen to be doing, and you can notice what the mind's doing, right, and not get caught in it. So you feel irritation, or you feel a bit stressed out, or you feel whatever it is. If you buy into that with a sense of I am getting stressed out or something like that, then you're going to have got a problem.
Yeah.
But if you just see it as coming and going. So Vipassana meditation is not just for formal sitting on the seat, on the cushion, but it's for everyday life as well. If you're in the line at RGA or something, and you're waiting and you feel the mind getting irritated, what do? You're at a red light. What do? You get irritated, do you get angry, or do you watch the state of mind that's arising? Buddha taught in the Vipassana practice, there's four, as you probably know, the four foundations of mindfulness are the exercises that we practice, but people forget to practice them. They forget in everyday life to bring it into practice. And
could you touch on those four, just for people listening?
Yeah, the four foundations is they're exercises to cultivate and develop mindfulness and concentration, leading to awareness and wisdom. Right? That's important to understand. So the four practices are: you pay attention to the body. There's numerous categories in that, but pertaining to everyday life situations, we can use the body very easily because the body's quite gross, right? It moves around, it drinks coffee, it picks up a glass, it brushes its teeth, it drives the car, it does everything. But we can pay attention to the body itself and the activities of the body, which means that we'll pay attention to what the body is doing at the moment. Is it sitting? Is it standing? Is it lying down? So it's more to do with the postures of the body. For example, if you're walking from here to there, right, you can turn your attention not as it usually is to thinking about the future, but to being with what you're doing as you're walking, right? So everyone's into walking these days, and everyone's got a dog.
Do you have a dog?
No.
Nah. Neither do I.
No,
I guess we're the exceptions.
We are the exceptions. We're social outcasts.
Well, my dog died, so.
Right. And then you'll see people walking with their friends and they're talking.
Yeah.
But if you paid attention to just walking,
that
would be meditation.
Yeah.
What am I doing now? I'm walking, right? That's what brings you into the present moment. What am I doing now? I'm brushing my teeth. What am I doing now? I'm drinking a cup of coffee. What am I doing now? I'm eating something. So this is the training. Now, it is hard I used to do these retreats 5 or 6 times in California, in this place called Sebastopol up in Sonoma County, with a Burmese woman. And her technique was mindfulness in daily life. And we do these simulated retreats, 5-day retreats, where there was periods of formal sitting practice, but then people would be given jobs to do, where they had to learn, where they trained themselves to be mindful. And they weren't allowed to choose the job. You know, say you were washing up, or you were cooking, or you were doing the gardening in the monastery in the center. You had to pick it out of a bag, out of a cane basket. Right? You were thrown into it, and you were asked to pay attention. What's your mind doing now? What's your body doing now? And then, so there were 3 or 4 sitting periods, and then a couple of hours of mindfulness in daily life. It was wonderful. It worked so well because it trained people how to be mindful in daily life. So the first one is the body.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, humble opinion, is really the prerequisite, because it's an easier object to observe. You're sitting in your chair now. You can note sitting. You just put your attention onto the buttock sitting. What do you feel once you've done that? You feel a sensation, right? And every time that we feel a sensation in the body, we can observe that as well. Is that sensation pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? What's my reaction to that? If it is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, right? You can see how the mind's reacting to it. So that's the second foundation of mindfulness, which is called Vedana in Pali, Vedana in Vipassana. Mindfulness of sensations, if they're pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So we learn to train ourselves to be aware of the sensations that arise out of the body from activities that the body is doing. And that's a really important step in the practice. The third foundation of mindfulness is the mental states that arise in the mind. And they're a myriad of mental afflictions, mental states, of negative and positive. So instead of getting caught up in sadness, frustration, jealousy, happiness, even calmness, tranquility, because what we start to observe them.
Yeah.
Because the Buddha's teachings is that what we need to do is understand the Four Noble Truths, right? And suffering, and the cause of suffering is attachment. So by observing in this way, we start to develop wisdom. And so because I'm attached to that I don't like something, then the mind starts to get out of control. Or I like something, which is even more dangerous, actually, because we'll do anything to get what we want. Our actions can be not so good. Our thoughts cannot be so good. And this is all, that all comes from this craving that arises in the mind. So the fourth one is, it's more subtle, the mind, observing the mind, which is called citta vipassana. And but it's harder to watch because the mind's so quick, isn't it? But gradually, as you keep observing and noting and knowing, then the mind starts to quieten. Mindfulness is able to keep up with the speed of the mind. So you're able to, there's anger, it's come in. Because of a stimulation that's touched a sense door, but you've got space in the mind to observe it. Understand what I mean? But it all takes training. And the fourth foundation of mindfulness is what they call Dhammanupassana, and that's to do with different categories of the mind. But pertaining to Vipassana, it's the obstacles that arise in the mind, but it's more to do with observing the 6 sense doors. Because all our problems come from what's known in Buddhism as avijja, or ignorance, because we don't observe the stimulation that comes from the impacts or impressions we receive from external to internal. We're caught up and carried away, and all kinds of problems can arise
Okay.
But
Thanks for that.
yeah, so these four
Two-
foundations of mindfulness are the core of Vipassana practice, and that's our practice. So you
Okay.
start by being aware of the more simple, which is not actually more simple, but it's the more easily observable until concentration builds up and mindfulness builds up and becomes more mature.
Do you ever have days where you're not bothered to do your 45 minutes roughly in the morning and the afternoon? Is there a sense of discipline in that,
Oh yeah.
if you miss it,
Oh, it's
you
just
feel the difference?
yeah. I rarely miss.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2 days a year.
Yeah.
Even if I'm on a plane or I'm doing something, I'll do something.
Yeah. Okay. And if you are there ever moments where you wake up and you're like, oh, like this is going to be a drag to get there to do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you always do it. Fair. Like anything, I guess. Yeah. Fair.
Yeah,
Discipline.
you gotta. Well, I like it too.
Yeah. True.
You gotta like it,
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's difficult, yeah, you gotta keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because,
Of course.
yeah, that's the thing. People give up too easily.
True.
Yeah, I mean, practicing meditation is more difficult than climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah, it's a daily thing as well.
Yeah, their mind is so nuts, a lot of the time. So it's not only a daily thing. I really want to make this point. It's an everyday thing that, as I mentioned earlier, you need to bring it into the situations you find yourself in every day.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
Or why bother?
Yeah.
Do you want to be happy for 45 minutes and unhappy for the rest of the day?
No.
So you need to bring it in.
Interesting.
Your everyday life.
Can I ask to bring you back to the Thai temple? How did you go from there to becoming ordained as a monk, and what was that whole process like?
Oh, okay. Oh, well, after, I don't know, I can't remember now how long it was after.
It doesn't need a link, but what was that like?
Well, after a year or so, my friend from the place where I was working, we both decided we wanted to become monks because we'd become good friends with the monk who was our teacher.
Do you have to shave your head to be a monk, or is that just in movies? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, indeed. And eyebrows if you're into
and eyebrows.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm halfway there.
Yeah, you have no problem. Yeah. So we decided to, the abbot of the monastery told us about a place that we could go and practice in outside of Chiang Mai in Thailand. And so we decided to go, but I couldn't go straight away because of certain conditions. But so my friend left, he went to Chiang Mai, this area in northern Thailand, and I went overland and with an introductory letter from the abbot of the monastery in London, and I ended up, I wanted to visit BodhGaya, the place where the Buddha was enlightened.
Yeah.
You must remember this was must have been 1970 or something, and I got there and it was July, the beginning of July, which is the beginning of in the monk tradition, nun tradition of Wasa, the rainy season retreat period. And it's just about to start, or usually starts around July 15th or the full moon in July. And I got to the Thai temple in BodhGaya with my introductory letter. And the abbot said, "Oh, you're too late. You'll have to stay here."
Yeah.
So I stayed. Yeah, he said, "No, I'll ordain you here."
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
No problem. This is how I ended up in India and BodhGaya for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
there you go.
So I had a interest in the training.
Yeah.
Because in those days there wasn't many places you can go for some kind of training.
Yeah.
Burma, was a place you could go, but not. There was unusual. It's not like it is today. And so to become a monk gave you a period of where you didn't have to worry about anything else except being a monk. And so you could go to these places and with less distraction, and you didn't have to work, you didn't have to do anything. And you could
How did you eat?
Hmm?
Like, how did you get food? Or did the temple
The
provide?
Thai temple in BodhGaya is like a replica of the marble temple in Bangkok. It was a big temple with a lot of monks.
Yeah,
And a lot of Thai pilgrims would come. And
Mm.
so the Thai temple in BodhGaya had a kitchen and cooks.
Okay.
And, like you didn't go, have you been to Thailand?
No, I haven't been to Thailand. It's on the list.
Yeah, well, those monks, they do pindapata. They go around with their begging bowls, and the townspeople or villagers offer food.
Okay. Yeah.
But in BodhGaya, of course, we couldn't do that. But they had a kitchen, and so it was delicious.
Yeah. Okay.
So they looked after us extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
And the abbot at that temple, who ordained me, he organised. There was, luckily for me, I think, there was a Vipassana meditation teacher in this same tradition who was studying at the university there's a university there, and he was studying Southeast Asian history or something. But he would come every Sunday and give me instruction, guidance. I'd have to describe my experience during the week, and then during the day I'd sit in the temple, sit and walk.
Every day? As a monk?
As a monk.
No weekends?
No, every day.
And in terms of so let's say you run you through your day, are you talking to people outside of the temple? Are you writing letters or anything to people at home or your friends from South Africa, London, or was there no contact with anyone?
No. You still in that particular place, because it wasn't a meditation center, and I was the only foreigner in the whole place.
Yeah.
And in also just about in BodhGaya itself.
Yeah.
At that time. And so I would meditate in the mornings up to
how long?
lunchtime. Usually start around, breakfast would be about 6 or something. So I'd start 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'd go through to 12. Then I'd have a break. Then I'd do another couple of hours. And I was also the abbot said, you need to go outside as well, because it wasn't a meditation center as such as you would find in Burma, for example. So he wanted me, so I'd go up to the Bodhi tree, and and I'd have a cup of tea or something, and I'd go and sit at the Bodhi tree, which was fabulous.
Yeah,
sitting underneath the Bodhi tree with all the Tibetan monks around, and magnificent.
Yeah, wow.
And I did that most nights, and then I'd come back, I'd sit again, and that was my day.
And how long were you there for?
I stayed in the Thai temple for that 3 months. And then I moved to the Burmese temple in BodhGaya. And that's when I started to mix and with the foreigners that started coming.
And where were the foreigners from usually?
They're all over America, Germany.
Oh, all over.
Holland, all over the place. Yeah, Australia. It was wonderful. Yeah. And then another teacher, I went with a Vietnamese monk. We went to Delhi, and we did a course with another teacher called Sri Goenka, which you may have heard about. That's another tradition of Vipassana practiced differently.
Yeah.
Same foundations of mindfulness, but practiced a little differently. And so I did that with him, and then met a lot of people there, still as a monk. And then I traveled around India doing retreats with that style of Vipassana for about 3 years, I suppose.
Yeah.
Then I disrobed because I came back to Australia after 5 years, and I didn't want to come back to Australia as a monk. So the Thai tradition, you can do that easily.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Wow.
Can I ask as well?
That's how it happened.
It was such an interesting life. I don't know any monks or anyone who's experienced that.
It's great. It was
fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it.
Can what's your view on like psychedelics mixing in with meditation?
Oh, my view.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't agree with it at all.
Why? Out of curiosity.
Well, I think it gives a misconception or a misperception of the actual mind itself,
Mm,
and it doesn't develop wisdom.
okay.
In the early days when we were young and hippie like, we used to take psychedelics and things like that. And my thinking about it now is that as a meditator, it doesn't help. It doesn't bring about the insight, wisdom, which frees the mind.
Okay.
That comes about through a natural unfolding, not through a drug-induced
Interesting.
unfolding. It can give people wonderful, interesting experiences, but doesn't do anything for relieving conflict and suffering in the mind.
Interesting. Can I ask as well?
In saying that, I just want to say that, but also there's a current thinking about that it can help in some illnesses, and that could be beneficial.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of
yeah.
It's like in the media now as it's like it's making its comeback kind of thing.
Indeed.
That's what
Yeah.
wanted to ask your view in terms of how it linked in meditation in particular, because what I've heard people say is things along the lines of it helps the process of something that can be done man-made naturally over a longer period of time, whereas that will enhance the process so it's quicker in a sense. But I understand what you're saying where it takes away wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Like progress in practice is interesting. A lot of it's to do with well, this is good. What time is it? It's a lot. I think what I've learned over the years is that meditation practice is a lot to do with certain conditions that can arise due to past act, like a karmic thing. Like some people come to meditation and they progress quite quickly. Other people come to meditation, that's a much slower process due to past conditioning, right? This is my understanding. But what I want to say with that is that most people can attain a good state of mind just through the natural process of meditation practice.
Yeah. Okay.
The problem is the effort that's needed is lacking.
Yeah, like anything, everyone knows what they should be doing.
Yeah, but we don't do it.
But we don't do it exactly.
Right.
Can I ask as well? Do you like, for example, I've listened to, I don't have it anymore, but Sam Harris's app or Joseph Goldstein's book. I've read that. I think it's called Mindfulness. Are there any books in particular or any of those apps? I don't know if you've met Sam Harris or Joseph Goldstein.
Joseph and I used to live together.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
As when I was a monk, when I ordained and was at the Thai temple in 1969 or 70 or something, he was the first Westerner I met.
Really?
Yeah,
What's he like?
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he wasn't a meditation teacher, he could be on the Jerry Seinfeld circuit.
Yeah. All right. Do you still keep in contact with him?
No, I haven't seen him now for a few years. I used to see him every time I went to California.
Yeah. Okay.
As the tyranny of distance.
Yeah. Fair enough.
He's
all right.
out of all, I shouldn't say this, but I will. Out of all the Western teachers, he's the one I would send people to.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. He's great knowledge and great experience, and we lived in India for a long time together.
Wow. Yeah. Crazy. Very crazy, hey? And that's the book I've read. That's crazy.
Well, I would recommend Joseph's books, any of Joseph's books. And I would recommend Bhante Gunaratana.
Bhante Gunaratana.
Mindfulness. He's a Sri Lankan monk who lives in, where does he live? He centers in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
His books are very, very good. He's
Mm.
got about 4. So
Okay.
yeah, he's the one. Well, a little more, not scholastic, I'd say, but there's another German monk called Bhikkhu Analayo.
Mm-hmm.
He's also very good. But Joseph and Bhante Gunaratana, that's all you need.
What do you think about apps or like Headspace as well as another example, as well as the Sam Harris one? What's your view on those kinds of things?
Headspace,
Yeah.
I'm not too sure I know about Headspace very much to comment on that.
Okay. Fair. What about apps in generally for those things? Or
Oh, I think I mean, yeah, we've been in a period of COVID now.
Mm.
And so it's been a couple of years. It was, I just did a day in August, and I've just done a weekend retreat down in
Mm-hmm.
the Southern Highlands. And it was really good to get back to face
Yeah.
with a teacher where you can be, I think you really need a teacher that you can talk to.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned in my early practice, I'm really grateful to that Thai monk in London.
Mm.
Every time I went to him on a Wednesday, I would report to him, what my experience has been. And then he could guide me. He'd say,
Mm.
"We'll do this now, or try that now, or
Mm.
getting blocked somewhere," and he'd help. I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer in that. Now, in saying that, I've also for 3 years been doing a lot of Zoom sittings
Mm. Mm.
and also Zoom talks for the Buddhist Library and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to like doing Zoom, but I think that's out of laziness.
Mm. Mm. I
But
think nothing beats in-person conversation.
yeah, but I still don't mind Zoom.
Mm.
So it depends. I don't run it the same way,
Mm. Mm.
but a lot of retreats now are done on Zoom, and people do that. I don't do that.
Really?
Yeah. You were talking about the guiding teacher of Vipassana in Honolulu.
Yeah.
That's called Vipassana Hawaii,
Yeah. Yeah.
Vipassana Illawarra.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the teachers there do a lot of, like 10-day retreats, even month retreats, and they do it on Zoom. And it's
Wow.
done as a proper retreat. They have
Wow.
interviews with the yogis and online, and
Mm.
I
Mm.
don't do that because I don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
I just do like a Sunday sitting, or I'll do talks. So it's only recently I've started to do, and I'd rather do long retreats face to face.
That obviously that would be the best way forward. I
Yeah,
mean,
but the Zoom's okay too.
yeah.
Depends on. I'm really lucky with a Sunday Zoom sitting that there's a group of people that have, they're regulars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've got to know them, and it's
Mm.
nice. I like
Yeah.
it. So I think that's the important part.
Mm.
The Buddha talked about this a lot, that community is really important.
Mm.
And he mentioned it to Ananda, who was his uh, cousin, but his PA, if you like, on a number of occasions. And he said the Sangha or community is really important because you can bounce off them,
Yeah. Yeah.
talk with people.
Mm.
And in the Dhammapada, the first verse is associate with the wise, don't associate with fools. So you need the backup, I think, of community
Yeah.
until you become quite mature in the practice. But still, then you need the community. I think the community is really important.
Mm.
So there can be a Zoom community, or there can be a face-to-face community.
Mm.
Luckily for me, I've been able to develop a small but dedicated Zoom community that come in from Hawaii and places.
Wow. Okay.
So
I
I
get
like it. Yeah, I like it.
the last thing I want to ask you really is you've lived a different life to a lot of people. You obviously have a different perspective on life through your practice. Did you have any either piece of advice or something you picked up from your years of meditating that you could impart on anyone listening, or to me even, just something like that? Tough one.
No, not a tough one.
No? Okay.
I don't want to be too kind of pithy, but don't take things too seriously.
Yeah, fair stand. Yeah.
Okay, so when your mind is rolling around in plans and stories and troubles and problems, let go.
Yeah.
That's it. We have to live our lives. We're not monks anymore. We live in a society where there's lots of action going on. We need to have a profession. We need to be with our families and et cetera, et cetera. But we also need to lose attachment.
Yeah.
And so you do that by practicing mindfulness. So for me, what I try and do is I live my normal life, but it's changed a lot in where I would live it. I mean, I still surf a lot. I love going surfing.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah. I've got my first lesson on Sunday.
Oh,
surfing.
great. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's my biggest block.
Yeah.
Because I love surfing. But I love going to the monastery. So I've got a couple of monasteries around here which I'll go down, and I love being in that environment again. But so what happens with meditation, what I found was that your interests change, and things that you used to do, you don't do them anymore. And so for me, that's quite okay, but without judgment, I just don't do certain things. And I try to be in a place that's not creating an uneven mind, if you like.
Could you give an example of that?
Well, I don't go to pubs and I don't do things like that, which I used to do.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm very friendly with everyone that goes to the pub. So that's the difference. It's not that you're saying, oh, they're bad people. I just don't do it personally.
Yeah.
Okay. If say there's a function with my surfing friends, right? Because they all, I go to the functions and I say hello, and but I only stay for a short period of time and I'll leave, and that's my interest. I like to go surfing. I like to go to. It's not that you give up; it's just that it changes. You give up things. I mean, I like going to Indian music concerts, and I like going to chamber orchestra stuff now instead of rock.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, maybe that's just an age thing as well.
Yeah. Didn't want to say it. No.
No, it might be an age thing. But I also, I just don't do certain things.
Yeah.
It doesn't come into my mind to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
so my advice is that don't take two things seriously. Be in a community that's going to be helpful for you, and follow the Dhammapada adage that I mentioned a little while ago. Don't associate with fools. Try to associate with people that are going to be helpful for you, you can learn from, and that everyone's got something to teach someone else.
Yeah.
So that would be I find that one of the greatest lessons. Be in the right place.
Yeah.
Or you'll be swayed too much.
Yeah. Okay.
That'll make it difficult to concentrate and to be mindful.
Well,
so, association, suitability. The Buddha described suitable conditions, and that's one of them. If you're interested in meditation, but you have to be careful of not judging other people. Some meditators will judge other people, what they do. So I try very much not to judge people, and I don't particularly, which is good. That's my advice. Don't take it
Thank
seriously.
you. Thank you. I appreciate the time and the insight.
Yeah, all right.
Very much appreciate it, Grahame. Thank you for coming on and finding the time, and thank you for giving your insight. Appreciate it.
I hope it was. I hope it was.
It was great. It was great. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk again, I'm sure.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah, bye bye.